Said it like so confidently.
Okay, guys, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Okay, you should be good to go, Terry.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone here at Socius for joining us here today for this important webinar on cloud services from Socius. We appreciate your time, and hopefully everybody's had a chance to get something to eat, and we'll get going with the presentation. So one thing I noticed on this first slide here, did anybody notice that the gentleman in the front there with the lamp coming over, the 1980s gooseneck lamp? I think I had that exact one in my dorm room in the early 1800s. I thought it was kind of interesting on a slide that's coming out. So the first area we're going to jump into is introduce the cloud team today. My name is Terry Ginley. I've been with Socius for a little over 4 years, and I've worked in a number of different roles here at Socius over the past 4 years. In 2015, I've been real excited to work with Daryl Mall and Bert Burry in the cloud team. So it's been a good experience and a growing experience as well. Bert joined us as the newest member of the cloud service team. He's been with us about 3.5 months. Prior to Socius, Bert was with a SaaS service provider, cloud provider, in the government space for a little over 10 years. So has a good background from a sales, marketing, and support, especially as well, angle. So, and then Daryl Mall, many of you know. Some of the newer people in the new office may have not met Daryl yet. Daryl's our cloud architect. Daryl's been with us for a lot of years. I'm just going to say that. But in the cloud role, Daryl's been with doing about 8 years since CBiz was in the cloud. First customer being the American Red Cross a little over 8 years ago. You can understand the depth of experience that Socius has in the cloud. So for our discussion today, so why is Socius Cloud important? And there's 3 key messages that came out from Jeff Geisler. Many of or everybody should have seen on the invite for this call and a couple weeks ago. There's 3 real reasons why. The first one I'll dive into is recurring revenue. Recurring revenue from our company and from our existing customers is vitally important as we move into a new era of how people consume technology. Just to get into some of the numbers, 2015 we have a goal of just a little over $1 million in recurring cloud revenue, whether that's on Socius Cloud, GP, NEV, AX, any of the solutions, Sage. So important goal there. And also in numbers-wise, our goal is currently we're at 40 customers. We're going to be adding 24 new cloud customers in 2015. So that's important. The next area, increasing our client satisfaction is really important. Again, our goal here for this year for the team is 95% retention or better, and I emphasize the or better in our cloud with our existing 40 customers and our new customers that are going to be migrating to the cloud. So you're going to see more about that here, what people are getting as far as this client satisfaction, all the deliverables you'll be seeing from Daryl later in this presentation. And then the big thing that really Jeff highlighted is increased market demand, and we'll talk about that in just a moment here. But on the different areas, the customers are really demanding the cloud, not just us pushing the cloud like we were 3, 4, 5 years ago. They're coming in asking, say, what's your cloud strategy? It really has nothing to do with which applications. It's about the services that they get, and that's important. This change of paradigm that Jeff alluded to in the initial message was, not that much dissimilar than there were switches 20 years ago to the, to a client server applications for to consume ERP solutions. I'll let the younger folks reach out to Lance Nepper, and he can explain client server and how that change happened back then. But it's really, there's a paradigm change that we want to highlight, and we'll talk to more during the presentation. So a couple of cartoons here, and I think it really highlights a couple of things. I'll let people take a look at those in a moment. The first one I think is really highlights, I don't think a lot of people really know what is the cloud. It's so used in were used in many ways, and it refers to so many different areas. I think it just talks to some of the confusion that's out there in the market. And the next cartoon, the one on the right, I think it's interesting how the person's saying, okay, we've moved all of these file cabinets and artificial plants, and I look at that as servers, equipment, and things being moved to the cloud, and that's definitely where the industry is going with moving those. But it's not really moving the people to the cloud. The people will still be able to interact with their data, their applications, like they do today, but without all the clutter and thought that they currently have in their on-premise solutions. So a couple of just things we're going to talk about today is the origin of the cloud. And again, I'm pretty sure that Al Gore, while he may claim that he invented the cloud, I think he just invented the internet. But it goes back a ways. I thought the green item there was really telling. Early predictions in the 1996 Compact Business Plan for Compact Computer Corp. They looked at it as this is going to happen with web applications and online storage. And you're looking back, they're correct. So the next one in the cloud today, what's the buzz? I think it's really interesting the call out in orange where the industry's at. Before I go into the numbers here, the numbers we're looking at, we have over 48 million times the cloud is mentioned on the internet. And the next two numbers, I think it's really interesting. These aren't millions. These are B's. These are billions. So in 2015, there'll be over 50 billion cloud-connected devices. That just shows you where we're at. These applications are out there today being used at just an incredible rate, and we need to make sure our customers are able to consume that, those kind of services from Socius. So we're going to go into in much more detail later in the presentation. But what is cloud? And again, there's a couple different views of what the cloud is. So from an IT community standpoint, some of our IT customers, those roles, look at it as off-premise storage, online access to applications and resources. And it's more of a consumption model. How much bandwidth? Those are the problems they're solving with it. I think it's really important that the green section in the middle, the Socius view of it, that Bert's going to talk to in just a moment. And the key takeaway is it's an all-inclusive solution. It's literally, 30 years of experience running your ERP and CRM solutions. And what customers are really getting for it, the value, are the 4 points that are on the right. High availability. We'll talk about that in a moment. Security, better than that they can secure it in their own walls. Scalability. How do we scale these resources and the cost across, at the end of this year, 65 companies versus just one company at a time in their data centers. And then the quality of services, not just uptime availability, but support all the different things that we do today. So, and again, it's a combination of different things that we pull together. It's not just what's the price, it's GP in the cloud, it's NEV in the cloud, it's all the different services that you're going to hear today. So I really want to emphasize that as we go forward. And I think the real emphasis from our cloud practice statement is a couple of things. It needs to be affordable, it needs to be reliable, and the biggest thing that I take away from our statement is that so our customers can focus on their core business. That's the important part of the cloud for Socius, so they can innovate without having to worry about the things that they have done in the past. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Bert for the next section of our presentation.
Thank you, Terry, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to address everyone and talk about the strategic importance of the cloud overall, but with a very strong emphasis on what it means for our organization and how we can enrich our clients' experience by sharing resources with them in a cloud environment. And as we focus on the strategic importance of cloud in our practice, in our service offering, we really need to transform our thinking. I think that's a key component of our goals and expectations that we have here as an organization. Specifically, I believe that we need to refocus our attention in as much that cloud is a solution that provides better service and increased reliability as compared to the resources that are available on-prem. In the cloud solution, the client can avoid hardware depreciation as well as receive additional IT resources without the increased cost that's associated with overhead. Cloud also provides an economy of scale that on-premise simply cannot. We also need to reaffirm our position as a trusted advisor to our clients. Our clients are looking to us for expertise and for counsel on what works best for them as our client. As such, the best place, I believe, to find the next client for cloud is within our own clientele. Many of us across the organization have existing relationships with these clients. Even when we focus on net new clients, we're building a relationship before they even get to our environment. So we can capitalize on that experience and that relationships that we have to further get them interested in the cloud opportunity and the resources that are available to them throughout the cloud environment. When we talk about cloud, and we will get into this in the future weeks and the months ahead, we really need to focus on what the cloud does, not necessarily what the cloud is. Sometimes it's difficult to explain what the cloud is, and that's why the really strong emphasis needs to be on what the cloud does. Next slide. So what exactly does the cloud do? As you can see from the boxes there are many different things that it does. It increases and reduces. It increases scalability, increases flexibility, increases cost savings and opportunities, access and mobility. It simplifies licensing complexity, reduces overhead, also reduces data loss and downtime. When we think of cost savings, for example, the client can save the cost of upgrading or replacing outdated servers, and the server environment support such as cooling devices, secure access to the facility, power panels, and redundant systems. When we look at the licensing box, we think that the client doesn't have to worry about the complex Microsoft licensing and what they need to do in order to be compliant. Cloud solutions ensure that all licensing is necessary that's available for ERP solutions are active and in place. When we look at the reduction of data loss in that box, we realize that SQL transaction log backups can be scheduled as frequently as every 5 minutes, which limits the amount of data that would need to be re-entered. In downtime box, when you think about downtime, redundancy is built at every level, power connectivity, network storage, things of that nature that ensure that a single failure will not affect availability. Key component to the cloud platform for sure. Also, it talks about increased scalability. It allows for unlimited growth potential that actually grows with the clients as their organization continues to develop and grow. In terms of flexibility, it allows for more focus on more important job functions, reduces the overhead like we spoke about before, reduction of server and storage costs, and as far as increase of access and mobility, it allows a secure connection from anywhere there's a reliable internet connection. Everywhere we go today, we hear about connectivity, accessibility, mobility. This is a mobile world. Everyone has at least one mobile device. You saw that on an earlier slide. And it's very important that we make the client's data accessible to them in their needs, in their environment, so that they can go ahead and focus on their core business rather than IT-related issues. Next slide, please. So when we think about the cloud, we have to ask ourselves, why is the cloud important? And really it comes down, I believe, to two key components: opportunity and reliability. The opportunity illustrates that cloud is a growing service, and it's simply not a fad or a passing fancy. Cloud innovation is currently fueling new business opportunities and application development never before seen. The other thing that's important about it also is a resource in terms of reliability. For example, the graph on the right illustrates the cost of downtime for large enterprises. Now, I understand that our sweet spot here at Socius is really the SMB, which is the small to medium businesses. But the cost of downtime transcends across all business enterprises. One of the many strengths of the Socius private cloud is our reliability. Our reliability in terms of uptime exceeds 99.99%, which is less than 52 1.56 minutes annually. That's pretty impressive, and for organizations that are our clientele, this is a key component to keeping their business operational and growing. The bottom line really is that each time a client is down, it costs them money. So Socius Cloud by default saves client money from the very beginning. And it's important that when we start pitching the cloud to our clients, either as an additional opportunity or a net new, that we focus on the fact that the cloud environment ultimately is going to save our clients a great deal of money over a period of time. Next slide, please. Again, another reasons why the cloud is important is in terms of data. The graph on the right of the slide conveys the exponential growth of data over the last 30-plus years. Organizations basically that are in that little gray area of the graph are really missing the opportunity, and more importantly, they're behind the trend. Okay? We as an organization need to get on board now and face the challenges that are out there in the cloud, because if we don't, we're going to end up being behind the curve. And we as an organization and as a provider, we do not need to be behind the curve. We need to be always pushing the envelope for ourselves, for our organization, and ultimately for our clientele as well. If you look at the very low far right corner, you'll note that the graph ends in the year 2010. You know, that's 5 years ago. So how much more data and connectivity is out there right now? We talk about, you know, on that earlier slide, we show a graphic of some statistics of internet connectivity today. That data in and of itself is already 2 years old. So the internet itself, the cloud opportunities, the accessibility, the mobility of mobile devices is increasing at an ever increasing pace. Next slide, please. Why Socius Cloud? You know, for several weeks ago when we had an initial presentation briefly on another corporate call, we talked about the importance, very briefly, of branding the cloud environment. And it's important that we don't think of the cloud so much as a cloud, but rather we brand it as the Socius Cloud. And that's a key component because there's so many different things that we as an organization can bring to the table for our customers, for our clients in the cloud. Socius brings, I believe, what many other providers are quite frankly unable to bring. Okay, and that's 30 years of ERP experience. For many of us that are in the organization, you know, 30 years is quite a long time. It may even be our lifetime. So it's a great deal of experience that comes to the table. It's not something that has just come up. It's 30 years of experience, and I think that when we focus on developing new business and expounding on additional opportunities, we need to keep that 30 years of ERP experience first and foremost in our minds. While that experience, of course, speaks for itself, I think we must also focus on the professional staff of resources that we as an organization at Socius bring to the table for the client. This and the client care support program differentiate Socius from other limited practices that basically try to do it all. And they just go out and they put out fires here and there to keep the customer happy. We at Socius don't do that. We're very proactive in our attention to our clients and very aggressive in going out and getting new business. And a lot of that focuses on our experience. The other thing that's important to mention is technical acumen. You know, when you look at that, you see an IT support team that focuses on the client's ERP. Very dedicated technical acumen. The support of multiple products, CRM, SharePoint, SQL, Dynamics. All these things are very important, and we focus on that. You know, our technical resources focus on every aspect of the client's ERP, and we've got the experience to support multiple products and provide access to the latest versions of applications. Leadership needs to come into mind as well. You know, Socius as an organization was a 2014 Microsoft Cloud Partner finalist. That's a very prestigious recognition. You know, I think it's important that we keep that in our mind as well. More than 8 years of experience in the cloud practice. A dedicated cloud team. Terry made a great introduction as to the three of us. We're here to support anyone and everyone in the organization for any type of a conversation relating to cloud. And then an established client base of 40-plus clients, and that's growing on a quarterly basis. This week alone we had 2 new clients come into the cloud practice. We're very proud of that. We're very proud of the efforts that everyone is working together to help build our cloud practice, hence the importance of having this type of a conversation and a webinar today to reinforce the strategic importance of the cloud environment. Backup, the bottom square here, talks about something that I believe is oftentimes overlooked and misunderstood, and that's backup resources. Socius stores data in a secure environment. We replicate client data into the cloud environment nightly. We replicate that data in 3 separate instances, and we provide data restoration up to the last 15 minutes of transactional activity. Now, when you think about that for an organization that is a client of ours, that's powerful. I had a conversation this very morning with an opportunity, and when they were talking about moving from on-prem to our cloud environment, one of their chief concerns was backup. And when the account manager and I asked them about backup, there was silence, and they said, well, we're not really sure when our last effective backup was. That's a great selling point for us as an organization. When this client moves, and I'm certain that they move to our environment in the cloud, they're going to get data restoration up to the last 15 minutes of transactional activity. That's very, very powerful. And there's going to be a lot of takeaways in the presentation and the webinar today, but I think the 2 takeaways from this particular slide are 30 years of ERP experience and the backup. Those 2 points right there are a win-win for any type of a conversation that you have with a cloud environment, with any type of a client, whether they're net new or a existing opportunity. Next slide, please. When you take a look at this, this is really basically a little example, a fun example of what cloud solutions really are. Sometimes we have a conversation, we think about, well, we all know what on-prem is, materials located on-premise for a client, but what is infrastructure as a service? What is software as a service? And how do they differentiate between the 2? This fun little graph kind of gives you an example because everybody is familiar with pizza. If you look on the left-hand side of the table, the traditional or on-premise example for pizza is being made at home, and this is a list of all the components that you need in order to make that pizza successful. A dining room table, soda, some sort of electric gas device to heat the pizza, the oven, fire, pizza dough, tomato sauce, all the ingredients that make a pizza. All those things, it's your responsibility. You have direct custody and control over each and every aspect of that process. If you move over to the middle where you see infrastructure as a service, you see that it starts to become a unique blend or a sharing of resources, if you will. When you have a take and bake example in the pizza, which is the infrastructure as a service, you still have to provide the dining room table, you have the soda, you still have to be able to reheat the pizza, but the vendor actually provides the pizza dough. They provide the tomato sauce, the toppings, and the cheese, and the packaging. So it's a blend of the both, and that's one of the things that we're going to talk about our service offerings in our cloud environment here at Socius. The last box on the far right talks about software as a service, and that's the entire outsourcing, if you will, of the package. You're dining out as a pizza. The company or the restaurant where you go to eat your pizza, what do they provide? They provide the dining table, they provide the drinks, they provide the electric ovens and gas ovens and the fire and all the different components that are necessary to make that pizza. So when you get into a cloud conversation, you start thinking about, cloud solutions, I encourage you to try to keep that pizza analogy in your mind to kind of help you understand and maybe even use it in a cloud conversation with a cloud opportunity. Next slide, if you don't mind. Thank you. So when we look at this, we're talking again about the impact. How does our 2 service offerings that we have in our cloud environment, how do they really impact our client? As you saw from the pizza example, we have 2 different types. IaaS, which is infrastructure as a service, and then SaaS, which which is software as a service. On the left-hand side, we look at infrastructure as a service. This is where the client desires cloud service for accessibility, reliability, and here's that key word again, backup. This is probably the best choice if the client owns their software and they're current on maintenance. The next option is software as a service. Software as a service, this is where the client has limited expertise in IT, or they have limited IT resources. Perhaps they're downsizing, or their organization is growing at a very large level, but they don't have the resources in IT to support that growth. Software as a service is a great option. Again, I would like to talk about the conversation I had this morning with an account manager and a client. They were looking at being able to get away from the frustrating aspects of license issues, and they are also looking at growing, but they didn't have the infrastructure in place. They were looking at some sort of a hardware upgrade. So software as a solution is going to help mitigate those issues, and probably will be a much better solution, a better fit for them. Again, as you can see in the low right, it's the best choice also if maintenance is lapsed. Now, in this example this morning, this particular client was current on their maintenance, but it's still going to help them facilitate their corporate growth. And again, that goes back to what we talked about a few moments ago, that we're helping and we're empowering and enabling, as you saw from the practice statement, our clients and potential clients to focus on their core business. And we focus on our core business, which is providing consultation services in all the different areas and fields that we provide that support. Next slide. So we want to talk a little bit about the pricing. Everybody, customers, clients, all of us are motivated by money, and where the rubber meets the road is the cost. What's the cost? And the investment really is how I like to look at it. You know, I prefer to have cloud conversations and not talk about the costs, but rather talk about what the investment is, because the client is actually making an investment in what? In us. That's why it's so important to maintain and build on relationships. When you look at the infrastructure as a service, this checkmark list provides a quick summary of what exactly we provide. We provide virtual terminal servers, virtual SQL Server instances. I won't read through the list. You know, Daryl will be able to talk in greater technical details about all of these things later on in the presentation. But then that's why it's important that when you start having a cloud conversation, you bring in a cloud member or a cloud team, myself primarily, and Daryl as well, to help facilitate and encourage and be able to have these types of cloud conversations. If you look also in that blue dot in the low right, you'll realize that it talks about named users. It's very important that we talk about named users. This is important because it allows accountability. It allows us to keep transactional data. It allows us to keep track of which users access the system at what time. And it's very important transactionally for our customers and our clients across the board. Go ahead and put the next slide. This next slide talks about the software as a service, and all the check marks are the same between the two services with the exception of the orange one across the top, and this is where dynamic software license is provided. It's a little bit more expensive because of the obvious licensure issues in there, but it's an investment of $230 per user per month, and again, it's for a named user. Now, it's also important that we can also do volume discounts. There's been a couple of questions about discount pricing, and we do provide volume discounts. You'll need to contact us and provide us with the number of users and the type of accessibility, the data, and a lot of other different factors that come into play as a type of volume discounts that we can make available to the clients. Next slide. The next slide here is important because oftentimes we need to think about what can be placed in a cloud environment. And sometimes we think of only a Dynamics instance, but the Socius Cloud, and any cloud for that matter, is much more than that. It's complex. We can support third-party software in the Socius Cloud. This example in the upper right shows ISV 1, 2, and 3, and these are just examples. We're certainly not limited to the number of ISVs, which is a independent software vendor. which is basically a fancy word, if you will, for proprietary type of software. There's no limit to the number that we can support. We can also support other ERP applications, other applications out there. You think of Sage and SysPro, Marcola, and then other types of databases and proprietary software. The only thing that needs to come into play when we talk about that is accessibility, server space. Sometimes if the client is going to have multiple users that are on the system at any given time and they're extrapolating a lot of content back and forth, there may be a need to put that ISV onto another server, which would keep that those Dynamics instances operating at peak efficiency. So those are one of the things that we need to talk about. That it's important to remember from this aspect to loop in the cloud team when initiating a cloud conversation with the client. That way we can help facilitate the conversation and help you determine whether or not additional servers are going to be needed for those ISVs if in fact they're going to be present. Next slide. This is where I'm going to introduce Daryl Mull, who is our cloud architect. He's going to take a few minutes and run through some of the aspects from a technical aspect about what you get in our cloud solution. Daryl?
Good afternoon, everybody. So, as everybody knows, I mean, you can see through this list of what's included in our cloud solution, specifically any of the ERP solutions. As everybody knows, Microsoft licensing is very complex and can be confusing to end users and our clients. And in doing that, one of the big, one of the easiest things that we do for them is take that off of that burden off of their shoulders by making sure that all the licensing requirements that are required to provide a ERP solution for them, that's the GP, NAV, AX, whatever license, the Office licensing, the server licensing, the SQL CALs, all of that is provided in one price to the client. It makes it easy for them to know that that they're current on all their licensing and they have all the appropriate licensing that they need. Also, both of the virtual servers and the SQL instances are set up and configured, not only as far as industry best practices go, but also with an emphasis on stability and performance. A lot of times, Brian Murphy, Brian Buckeye, Lance Brigham, all the technical guys will go into a site that is a new client to us that we've got from a VAR change or anything like that, and we will just see numerous setup and configuration issues that have just really sabotaged the the project right from the beginning. That the first thing they have to do is go in there and make those corrections. One of the things that we take care of in this cloud solution is making sure that all of that is done right from the beginning, so that from the get-go their solution is hitting the ground running and ready to go. As has been mentioned before, system access anywhere that there's a reliable internet connection, so that client can go and work at a coffee shop, work from home, do whatever they need to do, and have access to their information and do what they need to do at any given time. Bert mentioned before about the fact that all of the client licensing in a cloud solution is by named users, not concurrent users, which is what the on-premise solutions licensing model is. This really prevents, this is a fall down from Microsoft directly in the aspect that it prevents sharing with the aspect of the high availability and the connectivity that is enabled anywhere from it being on the internet and in a cloud solution. This named licensing really limits the ability for people to share licenses, or that's their attempt at trying to do that. So this was really a roll down function from Microsoft with our agreement with them to be able to provide the SPLA licensing that we do for the software. Another key component is all the sysadmin functions like the maintenance, the backups, the monitoring, and the license acquisition that has been mentioned before is offloaded to our cloud team, and all of that stuff allows our clients to focus on their business. Included in the solution, you have the monthly maintenance that's included. That's installing all the Windows updates for the operating systems, the applications, the servers, the SQL updates, and even the updates to the Dynamics applications itself. In addition to that, it's also the daily monitoring of both the server performance and the offsite backups and all the storage components to that. Troubleshooting any of the network connectivity issues that may arise or any of the issues with them getting into their systems, and monitoring the firewalls and all the logs to make sure what's going on should be going on and that there isn't something bad going on. The automated monitoring basically goes through, we use a platform called Level Platforms that monitors and automates all of that into a single dashboard and notifies us. We set thresholds and we go through different portions of the viewers that for all the information that we really need to know. That allows us to see across 30 to 40, the 30 or 40 systems that we have there currently. Without doing a manual process of logging into each one. It gives us a central repository which allows us to be more efficient and make sure nothing slips through the cracks. Scalability-wise, it allows us to be able to grow as the client's demands grow. So as they bring on more companies, acquire different organizations, have increased storage needs or increased users, we can easily do that, and which would only be an investment in their hardware if they were an on-premise client. And then the migration to the cloud, the experts that we have on the team, we have Brian Buckeye, we have a virtual team that also helps out, and Brian Buckeye, Brian Murphy, our client care team of Brady and Dan and Paul, and then Paul Ford helps out, and all of those people really that migration to the cloud make it a pretty fairly seamless and good experience for the client. Our cloud solution, like I said, access to it anywhere. We even have, with the web client solutions, there'll be more browser-based access. So another component and a newer component to the Socius Cloud solution, when you think Socius Cloud solution, it's not just our private cloud. It's not just the Dynamics, GP or even NAV or AX for that matter, and as it sits today. We also have all of the Office 365 platform, the Power BI platform, and the Microsoft Public Cloud Azure platform. What that does is it enables us to have the full stack of available options to us, and with our expert knowledge of what the client needs, or talking with the clients on what they need, and our expert knowledge of what the industry has to offer, we can decide where the best place for them is and what services and what products they should be looking at and what they can actually do. This enables us to give a 360-degree approach to what the clients need, and be able to offer them, and also get them involved in different aspects of that they may not have even known would benefit their business. Every single one of those bubbles that you see there, the Office 365, the Power BI, the ERP solution, Azure, that is all part of our the Socius Cloud solution. So when you say, when we say to direct people to the cloud team so that we can come up with this, the appropriate Socius Cloud solution, don't just think that it's going in our private cloud up in the, the data center here in Cleveland. It's, we're going to dictate what the appropriate solution is for them and where that location is and what they, based on the client's needs and what's best for the client. So, there's always a lot of questions on what is Azure and what does it do. Azure is basically the infrastructure as a service platform directly from Microsoft in their Tier 1 data centers that are located and separated out, worldwide. It offers that cloud computing infrastructure as a service, and it's basically in their data centers that utilizes, with Server 2012 R2, uses SQL and multiple flavors of SQL depending on what your needs are. There's lots of different components to it. As far as the the solutions that we offer, it's mainly going to be the SQL, the Active Directory, and the the virtual servers running the applications. Your benefits are that from a standpoint from the clients, that the applications are identical whether it's on-premise or in cloud. It's just a matter of how they're accessing the information and how they're getting to their data. Some of the benefits that they have over an on-premise solution, though, is typically they're more secure, more reliable, and is stable in our own environment, whether it's in the private cloud or the Azure cloud. your reliability and your stability is typically increased over an on-premise solution because they don't have all of the tier 1 data center facilities and all the benefits that come along with that. They also don't typically have the the scalability or possibilities for scalability as we do with our private cloud solution or the Azure solution. Some of the drawbacks between the going with an Azure solution, between that and our private cloud, is if the client activates an Azure subscription on their own, at that point they're on their own as far as managing it, configuring it, and going through and doing that. I mean, they can give us the credentials to log in and do the configuration and help them with that, but really they're managing their own instance. We don't have visibility into their instance anymore, so we can't monitor it for usage. We can't let them know, hey, you're really racking up some charges here or anything like that. We don't. Some of the configuration complexities with Azure, some of the things that are pretty easy to do on on-premise are a little more difficult because you don't have a wiring closet that you can walk into and do, and a lot of stuff is software defined, which is a little more complex. And then depending on what plan they sign up for, whether it be an open plan or an EA, there can be, when they transition between therefore pricing benefits as they grow, there can be downtimes up to 3 to 4 days when they transition between the plans. So, one of the key, takeaways to, this portion of the demonstration or our demonstration here today is that when you hear, Azure, when you hear Office 365, when you hear those, people talking about those aspects or, or wanting to hear about the cloud or go to the cloud, capitalize on that hype. Utilize that to direct them towards the Socius Cloud Solution. And again, we're not talking about necessarily our, the private cloud. We're talking about the Socius Cloud Solution in the aspect of all the different offerings that we went through on those previous slides. You can have, all those different features and benefits, and you can bring them into our expert knowledge of, that Bert and Terry went through with the 30 years of, everybody knows how, great every one of our coworkers is as far as knowledge and what we know how to do. Bringing them into that so that we can use all that industry knowledge and all that expert technical knowledge to put them into the right solution for their business so that they can focus on their business and we can enable them to run their business better. All right, I think at this next slide, I think Bert, I think you're up. So.
Yes, thank you, Daryl. Excuse me. So we really want to kind of talk about the cloud practice process. I know the time is short, so we'll just kind of run through it real quickly. This is just a flowchart diagram of the slide we can make available to you later to kind of give you an idea of the process of which you start out a cloud conversation. You start out a cloud conversation with the client. You have some questions to ask. I'm sorry, the font's a little small there on the slide, but there's going to be some specific cloud questions in that cloud conversation that you want to go through. You want to identify any independent software provisioning that we need to take into consideration to the cloud. We talked about that, the number of users, and the maintenance status. Those are all important. At the next, we go in and we engage the cloud team. You engage us into that conversation. We're here to help. We're help to facilitate that. It's all a team effort. We just want to be able to contribute and help, close these deals, excuse me, and the opportunities. Then the next slide, or the next box over, excuse me, to the right, we price out the additional costs. We schedule internal conversations to discuss the best approach with consultants, account managers, and the cloud team. We engage the client, go over the engagement letter, review the cloud service agreement, make sure that the client understands everything, what the expectations and roles are before they sign any agreements, schedule the client migration kickoff call with the account manager and us here in the cloud team, follow up and get feedback with the role of the account manager, building upon those relationships that are either beginning or those relationships that have been in place rather for some time. Next slide. Roles and responsibilities. When we really think about the roles and responsibilities, this is a great illustration to show that everybody within our organization here at Socius is a key player and a key component. In order to achieve the strategic goals for Socius overall and, of course, this cloud practice, it requires a team effort and a unified approach. We all have a role to play, and as Daryl said, we each contribute according to our specific wheelhouse, and together, if we work in concert with each other, we will achieve the goals that we have as an organization. And you can see the cloud team, our role, our responsibility is to provide a resource for all things related to the cloud, to provide training and support on all things cloud, and to share cloud trends and tips, from creating a cloud conversation and facilitating that to looking for additional areas of opportunity to talk about cloud and make suggestions to the clients, as well as finding net new clients with a cloud provision. When you look at the consultants, it's important to have that conversation. Again, the consultants, very, very important, already have some existing relationships that are deep with clientele and existing clients. Look to bring us in so that we can help complement what you already do best in having those conversations with those clients. The marketing folks do a great job. They punch up all the different details and approach, not only for the cloud practice, but for all the different aspects that we reach out to for our clients here from Socius. The account managers and the business development, you folks are the front line. You are the ones that work with those clients. The building up of the additional relationships and talking of additional products to the net new, all of those are a key component. And it's important. We just would like to stress and let you view us as an additional resource that you can bring to the table to help these conversations and to negotiate and find out the best solution and the best path forward, if you will, in a cloud environment. Next slide. So it really comes down to the takeaways or the next steps. As we've gone through this webinar, as we prepare to end it today, we've learned that we need to consider cloud as a viable solution, and we need to view ourselves as a trusted advisor. While that's all well and good, we're really left with the question at the end of the day is where do we start? How do we do that? And I think it comes down to these 3 points right here. Number one, we need to change our thinking and think about how Socius Cloud specifically can help the clients that you interact with. I think the next takeaway is action, or doing, if you will. It's important to start a cloud conversation. We don't need to be afraid of talking cloud or hoping that nobody brings up cloud. We need to go ahead and be aggressive and talk about that, because if we're not talking about cloud with our clients, somebody else is, and that could translate into a lost opportunity. So it's very important we're active on that. And then the other thing is visiting. After we've had this webinar, we're going to start having a great more attention focused on all things cloud. Reach out to us. You're going to follow Socius Cloud hopefully on Yammer and SharePoint. Listen and watch for cloud opportunities with your clients. Reach out, start a cloud conversation, engage us, and then follow us, like I said, on Yammer and these other points. We're going to be talking about cloud conversations all the time, sharing trends, sharing opportunities, showing how-to tips. All these things are important. And with following the Socius Cloud team on Yammer, you're going to be able to see in real-time answers and go back and ask questions and see and review things that are all related to cloud, that will help transition and make everybody in the organization more comfortable with cloud. Next slide. This is my contact information. Most of you have heard of me or have seen me in the hall, perhaps at Dublin once or twice, or had an opportunity to have a conversation with me. Feel free to reach out to me. The telephone number and email is there. I'm here to help you. I'm here to help build the cloud practice. As Terry said at the beginning of the conversation, I got more than 10 years of cloud experience, particularly with software as a service, and I'm excited about cloud. And I want to transition and convey that level of excitement to each and every one of you, because the strategic importance of cloud is huge. Cloud environment is going to grow exponentially over the next 3 years. Over the next 5 years and the next 10 years, the IT world is going to transform. It's going to be nothing but cloud. And we need to walk away from this webinar today with a sense of confidence, a sense of excitement, and a sense of opportunity to go forward and be ahead of the curve and be a leading contributor, not only within Socius, but for the entire IT movement towards the cloud overall. And with that, we kind of conclude our presentation and open it up to any questions that you folks would like to address to Terry, to myself, and to Daryl.
We do have some questions here. I'm just trying to gain back the mouse control.
Yeah.
Oh,
Looks
there
like
I
you
got
did
it. Okay. And to remind everyone, you can either submit your question through the chat box or you can raise your hand and I'll unmute your line. So here we have, are we hosting any ISV solutions today? If so, which ones?
We'll let Daryl give us some examples of that, and the answer is absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, we have pretty much. I mean, there hasn't been one Dynamics GP ISV that we have had to turn away yet. But I mean, we have PaperSave, Macola. I mean, all the popular all the popular GP ISVs are definitely hosted in our environment. Across all the different clients that we have.
And reach out to the cloud team on that, because potentially there can be additional cost, or I'll use Bert's comment. There could be a potential investment based on those solutions, and some of the smaller, simpler solutions there is no additional investment
Other than the licensing.
other than the licensing. Correct.
What is the comparative downtime on an ERP on-premise model versus ERP cloud? Do we have any comparisons?
The problem with that, and we don't really have a great comparison because most people don't report back to make it publicly available when their ERP systems were down for on-premise systems. But from a reliability standpoint, just from the servers and networking equipment alone, I mean, I can say that all the different redundancies that we have and all the different layers of redundancies that we have, are going to make that downtime less than what on-premise has, just because it's not cost effective for them to have all the same hardware and everything in place for their own installation as we do across the all our clients and then our data center, our tier 1 data center facility we're located in. But so we don't really have a comparison on that number.
And I would say that for our smaller customers that have more towards the server in a broom closet example, we give that visual sometimes. Clearly, we're going to be at our downtime at 52 minutes, annually. Obviously, we're going to be much greater than the smaller customers.
In the hosted model, are clients able to access the applications via a web client, or is it only by RDP?
So they have, there's multiple different ways that they can access it. They have full RDP sessions depending on what tasks they're going to do inside the application. We can expose the web clients for GP and NAV and different the different clients that way. We also can publish the applications via remote app. We did have that as the standard a few years ago and ran into some performance issues with printing and different things like that. Again, as everything changes, with Server 2012 R2, we're going to be reevaluating remote app and its possibility for publishing the apps out to the clients. And as all the different, basically any connectivity method that is even possible for accessing the applications, we can provide, and we'll actively work with the clients to do that. So as more come available, we're going to do it.
Where are the physical locations of our data centers?
The Socius Private Cloud is located in Cleveland, Ohio. Up here in Cleveland, Ohio. As far as the Azure data centers, they're worldwide. There's multiple ones across the United States and Europe, basically worldwide as far as that goes. And then our facility here in Cleveland for our private cloud solution is backed up to a facility in Colorado.
What is the additional per user investment to add Adobe Acrobat to a SaaS environment?
Are you talking about Adobe? I mean, Adobe Reader is free, but if you're talking about Adobe Writer, we would need to check on that. I don't know that off the top of my head.
If whoever's asking that question, if you want to reach out to Bert, and he can get you a more specific answer.
Yeah, she said the full version.
Yep. just reach out to Bert, and he will get you an investment number.
A lot of reporting is being done with Management Reporter and SSRS as Microsoft is giving unlimited licenses. Is the $160 per month the lowest fee for those users who only want to run reports and not use the software?
That answer is no. There are limited user licensing, and it really depends on how they want to access the information, how they want to expose that information to their users, and what licensing requirements we have. It strictly ties back again to depending on how they're accessing the information. Microsoft says if you're accessing it through an RDP, as soon as you do an RDP session, I have to license a Microsoft Office license for you. And so it all depends. Every situation is going to be unique. And I know that there are limited user licensing available, and we work to get them the best possible price depending on how they want to access the information according to what licenses Microsoft says we have to provide them for them.
And just to throw out a range there, I'm sitting here with Daryl. It's typically been in the range of $25 to $50 per user.
Correct.
So it's not anywhere near the $165.
Well, it looks like it's 1 o'clock, and that's all the questions that we have. So I think we can go ahead and wrap up.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for attending today, and for those that within the email, we'll send up a follow-up email to the link to the recording of this call. So those that weren't able to attend at client sites today, we would like everybody to view this by the end of this month here, and their casual time, and so we're all cloud enabled going forward. And the last thing I want to do is make quickly thank you to the virtual cloud team. And again, there's many members of that. Brian Buckeye, Brian Murphy, Paul, the client care team, the Lisa Steinhardt, and on the sales side and the marketing efforts that they've helped us with to date. I want to make sure I specifically thank them, as well as the two other larger groups, the account managers and business development team. We've seen some real early success here in the last in April here with 2 new cloud customers that have joined us in April, and Bert is working with the account management team for 2 additional we hope to close, or we will close by the end of April. And so those are an integral part of the cloud team, as well as all the consultants out there having those conversations with their customers, proactively, instead of them coming to us saying, hey, I need a new server, what are my options? Making sure we're going out there in every conversation, being a trusted advisor for our customers. So thanks for attending today, and any follow-ups, please don't hesitate to reach out to Bert and Daryl and myself.